Hello everyone, and today we're gonna learn about tenses. Simple tenses, continuous tenses, perfect tenses, and perfect continuous tenses. Now first of all, what are tenses? Well, the concept of tense in English is a method that we use to refer to time, which is past, present, and future. For the past tense, is a tense that expresses an action that has happened in the past. Present tense is a tense that expresses an action that is currently happening now. And future tense is a tense that expresses an action that will happen in the future. Now the first one would be simple tenses. Simple tense is a category of verb tense. It covers the simple past tense, the simple present tense, and the simple future tense. The first one is simple past tense. Simple past tenses would use suffix ed since it's an event that happened in the past and finished in the past. The form would be subject plus verb plus suffix ed. Unless it's an irregular verb, it will use the past participle of the verb. The form would be subject plus verb plus past participle. Now, the simple past tense describes a completed activity that happened in the past. For example, she saw a plane. They played together. She and they here are the subjects, while saw and played are the verbs. For the negative sentence, the form would be subject plus did not plus verb. She didn't see a plane. They didn't play together. She and they here are the subjects, while both of them uses didn't in the negative sentence. And lastly, see and play are the verbs. Simple present tense. The form we would use for simple present tense is subject plus verb plus suffix s. Simple present tense. The simple present tense is used for 1. To describe things that are true in general. For example, cheetah is the fastest animal on land. He loves animals. Cheetah and he here are the subjects, while is and loves are the verbs. Now, 2. To describe habits or things that happen sometimes or all the time. These adverbs are commonly used in simple present tenses. Never, sometimes, usually, frequently, often, and always. For example, he usually plays volleyball. I sometimes skips breakfast. He and I here are subjects, while plays and skip here are the verbs. Now for the negative sentences, we would use subject plus doesn't or don't plus verb. For example, she loves cooking would turn into she doesn't love cooking. And my classmates always lose would turn into my classmates don't always lose. Both of these sentences would either use doesn't or don't, while love and lose are the verbs. Simple future tense. The simple future tense is used for an action that will occur in the future. There are two patterns in making a simple future sentence, using will and be going to. Making simple future sentences using will. In making simple future sentences using will, we will be using this pattern. Subject plus will plus verb. For example, I will buy new clothes. They will bring it tomorrow. I and they here are the subjects, while both of them uses will in the sentences, and buy and bring are the verbs. Now for the negative sentences, we'll be using this form. Subjects plus will not or won't plus verb. I will not buy new clothes. They won't bring it tomorrow. I and they here are the subjects, while both of them either uses will not or won't for the negative sentence, and buy and bring are the verbs. Making simple future sentences using be going to. Now in making simple future sentences using be going to, we'll be using this pattern. For the positive sentence, we will be using subject plus am, is, or are plus going to plus verb. I am going to send it. He is going to cook dinner. They are going to come over tomorrow. I, he, and they here are the subjects, while three of them would either use am, is, or are going to. And lastly, send, cook, and come are the verbs. For the negative sentences, we'll be using subject plus am not, is not, or are not, plus going to plus verb. I am not going to send it. He isn't going to cook dinner. They are not going to come over tomorrow. I, he, and they are subjects, while three of them would either use am not, isn't, or are not going to. Lastly, send, cook, and come are the verbs. Continuous tenses. Now the continuous tenses shows an action that is, was, or will be progressed at a certain time. Past continuous tense. Now the past continuous tense is used to show an action that was in progress in the past. The form would be subject plus was or were plus verb plus suffix ing. We were talking about homework. He was eating breakfast. We and he here are the subjects, while both of them would either use were or was in these sentences. And lastly, talking and eating are the verbs. Past continuous tense in the negative sentence. Now the form would be subject plus wasn't or weren't plus verb plus suffix ing. We weren't talking about homework. He wasn't eating breakfast. We and he here are the subjects, while both of them would use either weren't or wasn't. Lastly, talking and eating are the verb. Present continuous tense. Now this would be used to show an action that is in progress now. The form would be subject plus is, am, or are plus verb plus suffix ing. I am listening. They are sleeping. She is eating. I, they, and she here are the subjects, while three of them would either use am, are, or is. Now the verbs would be listening, sleeping, and eating. Now the negative sentence would be subject plus isn't, am not, or aren't plus verb plus suffix ing. I am not listening. They aren't sleeping. She isn't eating. I, they, and she here are the subjects, while three of them would either use am not, aren't, or isn't. Lastly, listening, sleeping, and eating are the verbs. Future continuous tense. Now, the future continuous tense is used to show an action that will be in progress in the future. The form would be subject plus will be plus verb plus suffix ing. For example, I will be having dinner at home. We will be going to the park at 3 p.m. He will be playing a match with another school tomorrow. I, we, and he are the subjects, while three of them would use will be in each of the sentence. Lastly, having, going, and playing are the verbs. Future continuous tenses in negative sentences. Now, subject plus won't be plus verb plus suffix ing is the form. So, I won't be having dinner at home. We won't be going to the park. He won't be playing a match with another school. Here, I, we, and he are the subjects, while three of them would use won't be to show it's a negative sentence. Lastly, having, going, and playing are the verbs. Perfect tenses. We use one of three perfect tenses to show an action that has taken place in the present time or is continuing in the present time, that had taken place in the past time, or that will have taken place in the future time. First up, past perfect tense. Now the past perfect tense is used to describe an action that happened in the past and finished in the past before something else occurred. The form would be subject plus had plus past participle. Before I knew it, he had sprinted out the door. They had cleaned the gym yesterday. She has changed the banner a minute ago, right before we open. He, they, and she here are the subjects, while three of them would use either has or had. Lastly, sprinted, cleaned, and changed are the past participles. For the negative sentence, we'll be using subject plus had not plus past participle. She has not gone home. They had not cleaned the gym. I had not finished my homework. She, they, and I here are the subjects, while three of them would either use has not or had not for the negative sentences. And lastly, gone, cleaned, and finished are the past participles. Present perfect tense. Now, present perfect tense is used to describe an action that happened in the past but finished in the present. The form would be subject plus have plus past participle. I have finished my homework 3 minutes ago. He has run a full lap for the third time. They have played well in the practice match an hour ago. I, he, and they here are the subjects, while three of them would either use have or has. And lastly, finished, ran, and played are the past participles. Now for the negative sentences, we will use subject plus have not plus past participle. They haven't given up yet. I haven't finished anything. He hasn't lost the bet. They, I, and he here are the subjects, while three of them would either use haven't or hasn't. And the past participle are given, finished, and lost. Future perfect tense. Now, the future perfect tense is used to describe an action that would end in a certain time in the future. The form would be subject plus will plus have plus past participle. She will have gone to the park for an hour to freshen up her mind. I will have finished this book in 3 days. They will have planned more for this event tomorrow. She, I, and they here are the subjects, while three of them would use will have in these sentences. And gone, finished, and planned are the past participles. Now for the negative sentences, we will use subject plus will not plus have plus past participle. I will not have finished this book in 3 days. She will not have cooked dinner. They will not have arrived at the mall. I, she, and they here are the subjects, while three of them would use will not have to show it's a negative sentence. And lastly, finished, cooked, and arrived are the past participles. Perfect continuous tenses. Now, the perfect continuous tenses is used to explain something that has happened and is still happening now, still in progress in the past until some other action occurred, or still on progress until a certain time in the future. First of all, past perfect continuous tense. Now, the past perfect continuous tense is used to describe an action which began in the past at a certain time and is still going on until some other action occurred. The form would be subject plus had plus been plus verb plus suffix ing. He has been playing volleyball for 3 hours before I arrived. I had been studying for 1 hour when my mother needed help with cooking. They had been staring into space when they lost that last point. He, I, and they here are the subjects, while three of them would either use has been or had been. Lastly, playing, studying, and staring are the verbs. Now for the negative sentences, we'll be using subject plus had not plus been plus verb plus suffix ing. They had not been speaking to each other for years. I had not been sleeping well these few days. He has not been acting well these few days. They, I, and he here are the subjects, while three of them would either use has not been or had not been. Lastly, speaking, sleeping, and acting are the verbs. Present perfect continuous tense. Now, the present perfect continuous tense is used to describe an action that started in the past and are still going on in the present. For the form, we'd be using subject plus have plus been plus verb plus suffix ing. She has been missing since 2 weeks. I have been working on this question for an hour. They have been practicing non-stop since 3 hours ago. She, I, and they here are subjects, while three of them would either use has been or have been in the sentences. Lastly, missing, working, and practicing are the verbs. Now for the negative sentences, we'll be using subject plus have not plus been plus verb plus suffix ing. She has not been acting well since this morning. I have not been talking to her since last week. They have not been playing well on the match since it started. She, I, and they here are the subjects, while three of them would either use has not or have not been, while acting, talking, and playing are the verbs. Future perfect continuous tense. Now the future perfect continuous tense is used to describe an action which will begin and is still going until at some point in the future. The form would be subject plus will plus have plus been plus verb plus suffix ing. At 6 p.m. I will have been playing my games for an hour. When she turns 20, she will have been playing the violin for 10 years. On Wednesday, they will have been working with us for 3 years. I, she, and they here are the subjects, while three of them would use will have been in the sentences. And lastly, playing and working are the verbs. Now for the negative sentences, we'll be using subject plus will not plus have plus been plus verb plus suffix ing. I will not have been waiting for them for 4 hours. Will not have been using this car for a whole day. She will not have been living in this city for 5 years. I, we, and she here are the subjects, while three of them will use will not have been to show it's a negative sentence, and waiting, using, and living are the verbs in this sentence. That's the last one. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope this video can be helpful for you guys. Bye!